Trump has called out Walmart, the large US retailer, demanding that it bear the costs of tariffs on its own instead of passing them on to American consumers. The incident originated from Walmart's fiscal quarterly earnings report released last week on May 15th, which showed that net profit for the quarter was $4.9 billion, a year-on-year decrease of over 12%. Walmart CEO Mike Milliken said that given the narrow profit margins in retail, even after the tariff adjustments announced this week, Walmart cannot absorb all the pressure brought by the tariffs, and higher tariffs will lead to higher prices. In an interview with CNBC, Walmart's chief financial officer said that Walmart is positioned as everyday low prices, but the magnitude of the tariff increase exceeds the level that any retailer can absorb, and US consumers are likely to see price hikes by late May. About one-third of the goods sold by Walmart in the US are imported, mainly from sources such as China, Mexico, Canada, Vietnam, and India. CFO name Remy said that although the US government has adjusted the tariff rates, they are still too high for consumers, and he hopes tariffs can be further reduced. In response, Trump said on social media that Walmart should no longer blame tariffs as the reason for price increases across the supply chain. Walmart made tens of billions of dollars last year, far exceeding expectations, and should bear the costs of tariffs on Chinese goods on its own without charging customers any extra fees. "I will be watching, and so will your customers," he said. What undermines Trump the most is always himself. Now that he is demanding that Walmart bear the costs of tariffs on Chinese goods, less than a month ago, in an interview with ABC TV, he said, "China will likely absorb these tariffs and bear these costs. China earns $1 trillion from us every year. They have never exploited us like this before. This is their own doing." Since early April, when Trump announced a 145% tariff on Chinese goods, the US retail industry has fallen into unprecedented chaos. According to informed sources, executives from Walmart, Target, and Costco warned Trump at a White House meeting that if tariff policies remain unchanged, supermarket shelves could be empty within 2 weeks. A situation that would not only dissatisfy consumers, but also deal a devastating blow to Trump's approval ratings. For these retail giants dependent on Chinese supply chains, the stability of the supply chain is the lifeline of their businesses. As the world's largest manufacturing base, China provides a large number of cheap and high-quality goods. If the supply chain is cut off, these companies will not only be unable to find equivalent alternative suppliers, but also face the dual pressures of soaring costs and inventory shortages. Therefore, they chose to send a clear message to the White House: the high tariff policy is unsustainable. Walmart's chief financial officer Remy has said that about one-third of the goods sold by Walmart in the US are imported from other countries globally, with China being the most important supplier. Looking beyond the surface, Trump is not truly concerned about US consumers, but is worried that his lies will be exposed. When explaining the rationale for this tariff war to his supporting voters, one of his main arguments was that the tariffs would be borne by other countries. But the current reality is that the vast majority of the tariffs will be borne by US consumers. Not to mention China, even traditional US allies like Japan and the EU have no intention of footing the bill. The conditions they have proposed in negotiations are all to reduce tariffs to zero, and they have taken a firm stance. With trade partners like China refusing to accept the tariffs, Trump's demand that US companies do so actually reflects that he has few cards left to play and can only act tough domestically. In reality, Walmart did try to make Chinese companies bear the costs. On March 8th, the New York Times reported that due to Trump's successive tariff hikes on Chinese imports, Walmart, the retail giant, was facing enormous cost pressures. To maintain competitiveness, it had begun interviewing Chinese suppliers and retail supply chains, giving them an ultimatum to reduce the prices of purchased goods within a specified period to offset the adverse effects of the 20% tariff increase per item. It should be noted that at that time, Trump had not yet announced reciprocal tariffs only to rounds totaling 20% tariffs, but Walmart was already struggling to cope. On March 11th, China's Ministry of Commerce and other relevant functional departments quickly took action, interviewing Walmart regarding its demand for Chinese suppliers to drastically reduce prices. As an article in Yuanyang Tiantian, a hypothetical publication, wrote, If Walmart insists on this approach, what awaits it in the future will be more than just interviews. In short, China will not buy into this, and the tariff costs borne by retailers like Walmart are destined to be passed on to consumers. It is only a matter of time. Although tariffs have temporarily been reduced to 30%, as mentioned earlier, Walmart already felt enormous pressure when tariffs were just 20%. Not to mention that if negotiations between China and the US fail within 90 days, tariffs could return to 54%. According to US media reports, with 98% of clothing products relying on imports, after the tariff increase, US consumers' spending on clothing and footwear will increase significantly. Analyzers show that within the next year, clothing prices in the US could soar by 65%, while footwear prices might rise even higher by 87%. For US consumers long dependent on cheap imported goods, these price hikes are nothing short of catastrophic. Basic clothing items such as t-shirts, underwear, and socks are indispensable daily necessities for ordinary families. Precisely because of this, retailers must restock frequently, further accelerating the transmission of tariff costs to consumers, particularly low-income American households, which have the highest demand for such goods and thus bear the brunt of the impact. Interestingly, a well-known US showerhead company conducted an experiment, displaying both Chinese-made and US-made versions of the same product on its online store. Over 25,000 customers viewed the page, but all 580 for paid orders chose the lower-priced Chinese-made product. Evidently, the high cost of US manufacturing has yet to win the approval of American consumers, making Trump's manufacturing resurgence plan nothing more than an unrealistic fantasy. As a retail giant and the largest grocer in the US, Walmart is often seen as a barometer of retailers and American consumers' well-being. A CNBC report notes that more and more US companies are raising prices due to tariffs, with Walmart now joining this trend. Earlier this month, Microsoft announced it had increased the suggested retail prices for Xbox consoles and some controllers. A previous industry report by US-based Telsey Advisory Group showed that from April 16th to 30th, prices for some Barbie dolls sold in the US rose by 43%, while certain washing machines from Whirlpool increased by approximately $80 during the same period. The report also warned that products not yet affected by tariffs would soon face price hikes, with retailers and manufacturers unanimously agreeing that higher costs will be passed on to consumers. A key reason US large retailers have managed to withstand pressure over the past month is that they began stockpiling massive quantities of Chinese imports since Trump's election victory last November. As these stockpiles gradually deplete, retailers like Walmart will have no choice but to consider price increases. Trump, however, hopes these companies can hold out longer, at least until a trade deal with China is reached. He knows well that the mutual 115% tariff reduction is just the beginning, and the real negotiation tug-of-war testing both sides' resilience and internal strength lies ahead. If drastic price hikes occur in the US during negotiations, impacting public approval ratings and financial markets, Washington will undoubtedly be placed in a more passive position at the bargaining table. Hence, Trump is highly sensitive to corporate price increases. Late last month, Amazon announced it would raise prices on over 1,000 products due to tariffs and would soon display the percentage of tariffs next to product prices, directly showing US consumers how tariffs inflate costs. The Trump administration swiftly criticized Amazon, with White House spokesperson Leavitt even denouncing the move as a hostile political act. First Amazon, then Walmart. Every time a US company announces a price hike, the Trump administration is the first to react. There are no winners in a tariff war, but the first to fall will surely be the bully. Looking at Trump's current dilemma, one can only say, if only he had known what would happen, why did he act as he did? The greatest lesson from this supply chain war is that when Chinese manufacturing masters core technologies and the global factory transforms into an innovation factory, anyone trying to exploit hegemony to pluck wool will ultimately shoot themselves in the foot. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support means a lot. See you next time.